Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Women in AI at Code with Eve. Women in AI is a series dedicated to shining a light on the many different paths women take into tech and AI. The unexpected turns, the bold decisions, the mentors who lift us up, and the moments that change everything. Each episode brings real stories, real expertise, and real vulnerability from women shaping the future of technology. Whether you're already building with AI or just beginning to explore these conversations, they are here to spark your ideas, to open some doors, and help you see new possibilities in your own journey as well. Today's guest is an absolute force. She is a writer, Microsoft MVP, CEO, technical educator, and a mother who's been shaping AI from the early machine learning days all the way to today's conversations about agentic identity and responsible AI. We're going to talk about game changing moments in AI, navigating career and family, building safe and responsible systems, and the future of identity in an agent driven world. This is going to be deep, fun, surprising, and absolutely packed with insights. So please give a warm welcome to Noelle.
Hello, it's so
Hi.
glad to be here. Thank you so much. What a nice introduction.
Thank you so much. It is about an awesome woman, so it has to be nice.
all of the women you have, like amazing, amazing. I'm glad to be one of them. Thank you.
And I'm so thankful for you to join us today. And I think we could even look a little bit on your background first, because I'm really excited to hear, because I don't want to get in the middle of it really, but I want to hear, how did you get through your journey, your early career, and how did you actually get into AI?
Absolutely. People often ask me how I got into technology as a whole. And I will say it's actually very similar to a time we're in right now. I often joke that it was like the first time the world was going to end, a Y2K, and that at that moment I was in school, but companies like IBM were very interested in anyone who was able and capable of writing code, developing solutions. And so I was actually in avionics at an
Mm.
aviation school, Embry-Riddle,
Wow.
not going down really a computer science or engineering path at all. But IBM was really, just like companies now are looking for data scientists, data engineers, forward deployed
Yeah.
engineers. That's kind of what they were looking for, software developers in the same way. And so I went to work for IBM, ended up leaving college early because I would have graduated, I suppose, in 98, but I didn't finish because in early 98 or early 97, people started worrying about Y2K anyway. And back then, I don't know, some of the listeners and people might remember, but back then, if you got a job offer from IBM, like everyone was like, you're set. You don't even need anything. Like, that's it. Just
Okay.
do that. Like the high fives for my family, everyone was like, this is the only job you'll ever have. You'll retire there. That was the mindset back then. Obviously, that's not the case today, but I did spend 12 years there. And I was always working on kind of the latest and greatest stuff. And so I ended up going from IBM to VMware, always pushing. At IBM, I was on the cusp of like what would eventually become web services, service-oriented architecture. Went to VMware to help pursue kind of their early stages of cloud and being able to leverage, really increase the utilization of hardware. So I was very much interested in not just the software, but the hardware combo from a very early age, early stage of my career. I went to VMware. We spun off Pivotal and Pivotal Labs, then got the call from AWS in order to join as a cloud architect, kind of climbed the cloud architect ladder until got an opportunity to accept the call, right? Jeff Bezos and team sent out an email to the company saying, hey, let's, we want to build a new project. We're going to build the Star Trek computer. And of course, I'm a longtime sci-fi person. My dad, raised me on science fiction. So talking to computers was a long time vision of mine. So when I got an opportunity to join the Alexa team, I jumped at it. I was employee 10 on the services team. And I kind of like say like that was the beginning of the rest of my life.
That's nice.
Yeah, I didn't have any, AI experience. I was not naturally, I wasn't classically trained in artificial intelligence, but that's not what the team was looking for. And I think it's really an important point, right? Is that they were looking for someone who is high energy, high level of commitment to excellence, but most
Yeah.
importantly, had the ability to learn and build. Like that was the
Yeah.
whole learn and build, learn and build, learn and build. And so I demonstrated that throughout my entire career, so it became an easy yes for them when the opportunity arose.
Right, right. We'll talk more about learn while you're building or learn while you're doing things as well a little later on. But I would like to come back. First of all, I like that you wanted to, talk with a machine. And
Yes.
I can imagine that has been a big game changer for you in AI when the possibility of, for example, generative AI came across.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting because I've been working like Alexa was the first to really
Yeah.
productize natural language. And it was very hard at the beginning. And even up until ChatGPT, I always used to joke that it was kind of like feeding vegetables to kids, right? Like I was like, you should eat this, like you should have a voice UI. You should make it easy for people to access your technology or your brand or your website. And voice is the easiest user interface. Just let someone talk to you and then they can execute code. It was the easiest answer for me, but most of the world was just not ready to hear it back in 2014.
Yes, yes. Okay, so what has been the biggest game changer in AI from your perspective? Was it the Gen AI or
Um,
Alexa?
I think it was probably like the biggest game changer was really probably adoption. Right. So
Hmm.
if you think about how, I was an early tester on OpenAI's GPT models during
Yeah,
COVID, right? This is
yeah,
before they launched ChatGPT. It was actually part of the MVP program, right? I
yeah. Me
always tell
too.
people, right? Like when you get that email, which you got as well, right? That's like, hey, does anyone want to test this stuff? Um,
Yeah,
I'd like jump in, both feet, all like my whole body. I'm like I'm doing this.
yeah,
And sometimes it works out and sometimes I waste my time. But I always say yes because over the course of my career, it has paid just massive dividends to have been in the room when these things are born.
sure.
And of course, I think that, part of our participation as just a diverse perspective in the room changes the path that they'd ultimately take when they bring it to market. So I feel like that moment, right, when they started building a playground for natural language that was like a text chat conversation, but turned everything like up until that point, right? Alexa, for example, Google Assistant, most chatbots on websites were very intent driven and command and response, right? You would issue a command, it would send you a response, but all of it was pretty much hard coded, right? Like
Hmm.
the information was coming from a source, it was being regurgitated from Wikipedia, right? It wasn't artificially intelligent. It didn't even pretend to be, right? And so ChatGPT, I think when it launched as a playground for language engineers, right? Linguists, language engineers, data scientists, we all got pretty excited about it. But what we unlocked was this excitement anyone could participate in, right? Like
Yeah,
anyone could play. And that's what I think really changed is that now, I mean, now we're having to fight the battle of everyone thinking that that is as good as it gets, right? That you just have a smart natural language engine. Now we're really trying to, we need to kind of move people along to more sophisticated use cases, but it's challenging. I mean, at Alexa, the first thing we taught people how to do was build a natural language UI that could call on a data source and provide,
hmm,
like, it was basically called a fact skill, right? Where you'd
yeah,
call on and be like, give me a bunch of cat facts or dog facts or banana facts or space facts. And as a data scientist, I would create the list of facts and then I would source it and create a set of intents you could use
hmm,
to call it. Like very
yeah,
linear from a like logical perspective, data science perspective. But that was just the beginning. Like from Alexa's, like first day, you could connect it to any code, right? You could have your voice trigger talking to your sales, your CRM, right? Talking to your sales data, talking to Salesforce, talking to your
Mm-hmm.
backend operating system, talking to your email. But nobody built that. They got stuck on facts. And that's kind of where we are with ChatGPT, right? Everyone is kind of stuck on the simple prompting we learned 3 years ago, 4 years
Yeah.
ago. And it's really hard to get people to be like, wait, there's more. And that's kind of, I think, part of my job.
Yeah, we will need to get on that path as well for sure. But I would like to go back to the moment when you mentioned when the GPT-2 and 3 models came out first. I remember I was also part of that team, and that's when we built the generative AI comedian. Do you remember that
Yes,
thing? Have you ever
yes,
seen that? It was quite awesome. And when you
yes.
say that everything is kind of built on facts right now, I remember that I actually fed in some jokes to kind of I can't remember how did I call it at that time, but it was basically a kind of fine tuning
Yeah.
that we did there, and we provided some ideas to it. So okay, this is the joke that fits. This is what is not
Like the
something that you
constraints.
should do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like so much fun, and we had to
And
put it.
those constraints were very much driven by whoever was training it, right? Like, so it was a
Yeah.
very individual thing. Like, if you happen to be, you know, um, if you didn't really care, like if you were interested in jokes that were a little off color or maybe, offensive, like
Mm-hmm.
unless you were a human doing that work that cared about that, those constraints wouldn't have existed. It just so happened
Yeah.
that a lot of us cared about that. Thank goodness, right?
Yes, yes.
I think data scientists in general, we tend to be, very empathetic. We like to build things that serve people. But yeah, like it blows my mind that back then it was reliant 100% on the like literal human that was doing the work. And,
Yeah.
thank goodness it ended up being some people that really cared about creating quality and helping people, have a laugh, but not at the expense of others, which was a very deliberate constraint.
Yes, yes. And now that we are talking about fun and
Yes.
jokes, I have a very interesting story that I would like you to tell us.
Oh,
I mean, it's your story actually, but I found it so funny that I would like you to share it with us
I hope
again.
I remember
So
it.
I think so. You were part of this early machine learning era, including the Alexa. And there was this press cycle where kids
Oh,
started acting differently. Can I use
yes,
it like
yes,
that?
yes.
And can you walk us through what happened and what that moment thought the industry maybe?
Absolutely. So, imagine if you will, like me, I'm a mom at this point. I had my third son the same week that Alexa was born, right? So he was born
Ah,
on the 1st of November. Alexa launched on the 6th.
okay.
And yeah, and we could talk about how that went down and people can judge me for my choices during that week. He was my third. So like my third kid basically raised himself from birth. But that being said, I'm a mom at heart. And so we started to see this press cycle. And actually it was an article, it was in like Forbes or Inc. magazine, but it basically was saying that Alexa was turning their kids into jerks, but they didn't say jerks, right? They said another word that I won't repeat here. And when they did that, it was, like you look at that as a mom and I'm like, wait, what? Like, I'm not creating a device that turns kids into mean anyway. So we as data scientists started looking into it, being like, what are they talking about? And what we had uncovered was that inadvertently in our development of the intents, right? We told Alexa
Mhm.
exactly what we expected it to hear and then created the workflow for it to execute once it hears it. The only thing we did not consider was that kids would use, and adults would use words like please and thank you, right? And so whenever you would say in the early days, some of you might remember when you would say please or thank you to Alexa, it would stop, it would beep, it would go beep, beep, like I don't know what you're talking about, and it would quit. So it was training children not to use their nice manners, not to use their words,
Mm,
but to command Alexa like a servant, right?
yeah.
Alexa, do this, Alexa, do that, give me the time, tell me the weather, right? As opposed
Yeah.
to embodying these niceties. And I think it's really funny because Sam Altman recently, right, in the last year, came out also and was like, yo, if you're using please and thank you, you're actually creating more tax on the model,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
nonsense. Um, but like to tell the world, like, we're creating a system that you're communicating to, and to basically take out that part of us that's human, that wants to be nice, and be like, the model anyway. So it ended up being pretty funny, only because I was the only mom on the team. But most of everyone on the team was empathetic to the idea that a
Hmm.
kid was going to have to change their behavior in order to use the device. And if you're a design, like, that's the last thing you want to do, right? Is force your users to change. So we ended up updating about 1,000, maybe it was 3,000 utterances. We ended up changing a bunch of the regex to include please and thank you in random places. As a matter of fact, I remember the data scientist specifically. I mean, he spent all night making these updates. And I think the
Wow.
most fascinating thing about that is that there was no like boss or manager or CEO being like, go change this, right? Like, this was a data scientist who was like, that's not right, and I can fix it. And we just went and fixed it. And it didn't change anything from like a behavioral perspective, right? Like, it didn't change our OKRs, it didn't change our outcomes. It was extra time a data scientist spent just so kids could say please
Yeah.
and thank you. And I thought that that was pretty cool. And that's happened multiple times in my career where I've had data scientists kind of go and do the extra mile to make the user interface better. That wasn't a requirement of the business itself.
Yeah, that's still nice of you that you're taking it serious.
Yes.
When you think about AI's evolution and looking at the past, what do you see as the next real game changer?
Oh, I would probably say, maybe we're going to talk about this later, but I think the
Hmm.
biggest evolution we're seeing now is, I'm actually launching a big project for in a couple of months called the Great AI Upgrade. And it's
Uh-huh.
basically two forms, right? One is the AI business upgrade. So I go into businesses all the time, small, medium, large, very large. And every business in all sorts of industries, agriculture, life sciences, transportation, right? Like government, local government, municipalities. I go into these organizations, and as far as you and I are along the path of AI, most of these organizations at most are playing around with ChatGPT. And like I said earlier, like early stage prompting, I call it like vending machine AI, right? Where they're like, give me this. I want to rewrite this email, take notes for
Yeah.
me, create my action item, like very vending machine, as opposed to using it to actually transform workflows, right? Creating graphs of data and being able to, basically alleviate a lot of the problems that are in the organization. So that's kind of what I see as the next big shift is, I'm seeing it now as I work with my clients, but like as I work with a client and I just can go in immediately and spot 7 to 10 things that an AI system is not going to build a net new capability in the business. It's
Hmm.
just going to remove friction. It's going to remove process challenges. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but I have a session I did with Solanas, right? Make.com. And we
Hmm.
talked about process intelligence. And I shared with that audience as well that there's $12.9 trillion in global GDP value, global GDP
Okay.
every year that's lost in just how things work, right? In just lost connections, right? When two systems don't talk well to each other, when a human and a human don't communicate well, when a
Hmm.
system fails right when we need it, like just in things that are broken. And so that is my prediction, right? Is that we will see this new unlock in every business, right? Not just the
Okay.
yachts of the world, but every business. The rising tide will really lift everybody who's willing to be open and accept the opportunity for AI to fix what's broken in their business.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting too. Okay, so now you are a mother, a Microsoft MVP, a tech leader, and a lot more than that. So how do you navigate all these roles without losing yourself in the process?
That's a interesting question because I am multifaceted. Some would say maybe like a polymath, where I'm very deeply interested. And it's not like I'm what they would call like a jack of all trades or a Jill of all trades. Like I go very deep in lots of areas. And so one of them, of course, well, one thing I do, and this is just hopefully helpful to someone who's listening, who's thinking, gosh, man, how did Noelle have 6 kids, or create a family with 6 kids, working at Amazon and Microsoft and National Public Radio. And the best thing I can say is that I learned something from Jeff Bezos, which might surprise you. He introduced a concept to me in like 2013, 2014. It wasn't just to me, it was to the company, that really acknowledged this at that time. And even now, there are still a lot of conversations about this, but at that time, there was a lot of conversation around work-life balance. And work-life balance is uniquely, or at least at that time, and in my experience, it was uniquely a female consideration, because there was no balancing for men, right? Like, it was integrated for them. Like, they'd go home, they'd come to work. Like, there was no need to like be everything everywhere. That was an expectation that was uniquely on women. And so, at least that was my perception, because I felt like I was doing all the things, right? I would go home and do a full-time mom job, and
Yes,
wife
yes.
job, and then I would go to work and do a full-time job. And I was like, what is happening right now? This is not like, it didn't seem very fair. But he introduced a term called work-life harmony, or work-life integration. And it really released me from needing to be perfect all the time, right? Like, that I would have everything going on at work and everything going on at home, simultaneously needing to be 10 of 10 all the time.
Yeah.
And so I even created a website and a podcast called Work Life Harmony, because I was so interested in this topic, because it takes a lot of, one, grace for yourself, but two, a lot of emotional intelligence to know when to go all in at work and when to go all in at home, and be willing to let work not be 100% while you're going in all, when you're doing everything you can at home. So identifying these cycles, right? And so that's what I ended up just starting to do a lot of work on, is analyzing how I spent my day, analyzing the businesses that I was a part of, and looking for those cycles. So now I'm a public speaker, I run an education business, and I run a services business. All of them have cycles. All of them have, like, in the span of 12 months, they have certain times that are downtimes. They have certain times that are slower than others. And I strategically orchestrate my personal life to match that. Now, granted, work doesn't come first. Like, this happens all at the same time. I lay out all of the things I want to do, and I create a flywheel. I create an orchestration of, okay, I know in December, which luckily is Christmas, November, December, January, I'm doing a lot of reset for my businesses. My speaking is down, so I spend a lot of time with my family during that period. Same thing happens during the summer. And so I think it's a lot about being intentional, really, like setting an intention for being as present as possible in each space when you're there. And so I always do we have a family meeting in our house, and I sit down with everyone, and we all ask questions like, what could we do better? And what are we doing well at? Because not everybody likes to hear criticism all the time. And while I love the things that they say I'm doing well at, my biggest interest is in what I can do better at. But they always say one of the best things I do is that when I'm with them, I am present. I'm not on my phone. I'm not on a computer. I'm not running to a call. Like, I'm present with them. And they said that that's the biggest gift they could have received from me. And they also say, and now they're older, right? I've got teenagers, 18, 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds. And they're saying, like, that looking back at their friends' parents, that level of presence really was the most important thing they could have asked me to give them. Not gifts, not extravagant vacations, though those are nice, but just being present with them, asking them questions, having dinner with them every night I can. Those types of things were really, really impactful.
Yeah. And you mentioned you are running your own businesses, and you have a really cool role as well right now as a CEO, and it involves AI. And I'd like to hear more about this role and what part of it energizes you the most.
Yeah, so I decided a few years ago. Well, I guess we just celebrated our 11th birthday, which is pretty exciting. So AI Leadership Institute, we opened the doors to that company because one of my superpowers was going into companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and Google and talking to their executives. And in those meetings, I was the AI person. But what I recognized was, like, those are the executives, like the top 100 companies in the world that get a chance to talk to Satya Nadella and sit in the office and get all of the product owners into the room. What I realized, and this was, 11 years ago, was that not every company gets that treatment. Not every company has that executive, third party, trusted advisor that can tell them what the difference is between marketing and execution, right? What I call in my book, right? I call it the journey from enthusiasm to execution. Enthusiasm is the brief, right? Where I'm like, this is going to be amazing. Your company's going to be fantastic. And then of course, that transitioning them into what does it actually look like when you deploy this responsibly, safely. So that conversation wasn't happening very often. And one of the things, I can't remember if it was like Aristotle, maybe it was Aristotle. I think it was. So Aristotle, right, an ancient philosopher, he basically defined purpose. And he defined it similar to a Japanese framework as well. But he defined purpose as this intersection between what you love to do and what you're good at doing and what the world needs right now. And so I love teaching. I love educating. I love, talking to people, taking them from arms crossed across their chest to like, oh my gosh, this is cool. I like helping them on that journey. And it turned out that the world needed, and still does, people to educate these companies, these executives, these boards on what that looked like. So that's how it got started. But then, of course, as with any business, in order to stay in business, you have to make money consistently. I had a vision of building a company with no employees, which I still have to this day. But it doesn't mean I don't have people working with me, right? It just means that the nature of the way I work with them is different. I'm helping them build their own companies, right? So they contract with me. But I had to find kind of a group of people that I could trust, my inner circle, people that I would grow my business with. And so I did that by creating a community. We have like 2,800 members now on School. I ended up, I always think it's really important to realize like you could go it alone, but you don't have to. And you don't have to, go and try and hunt for people to be friends with. Like what I started doing is I just started like what you're doing now, right? I just started communicating to the world through social media, LinkedIn lives, YouTube, Instagram. I just started sharing what I like, what I do, and giving people an opportunity to join me in a free community. And so people would naturally raise their hand because they resonated with the things I said, the things I believe. I mean, you can see my t-shirt right now. These are my 12 leadership principles, the core value of my company. It's called Lamplighters. I now know when I talk about this and someone's like, oh my gosh, I love that. I think the same way. I'm like, you're my people. Cool. I want to work with you. So that's kind of what
in the meantime.
how I ran my business. Yeah.
Yeah. And you seem to see learn by doing is coming very important. I think you have mentioned it already today as well. So why do you feel like hands-on learning is more important today than maybe before?
So I have a couple of, kind of practical things that I expect from the people that work with me, but also from my clients. And one of them is this shift from, kind of what we mentioned before, as you mentioned, like with vending machine AI, right? This consumer mentality. As a mom in our house, we have a rule. Like if you're going to use social media, if you're going to get on social and play around or doom scroll on TikTok, you have to produce before you consume. And that doesn't necessarily mean you need to produce social media, but you have to move into the mind of a producer. Like, what are you going to build? What are you going to do? What are you going to become? Like, and the reason I ask them to do that is that I want them to either build some education or create a piece of art or build a friendship bracelet, right? It shifts your mindset into this place of becoming a producer. And so that's one of our philosophies, right? Is that you have to be a producer, not just a consumer of this technology. That means that you architect how it works. You design the user interface. You choose a model intentionally. You evaluate against constraints you've defined, just like we did in the early days of Chat GPT's, beta testing period, right? Like we design that experience. But another philosophy, of course, we mentioned learn by doing, meaning every chance you get, you have your fingers on a keyboard and you're building something. The benefit today is that you don't need to actually code to get that experience. It used to be the case. Today, you could just use your words to design. I build stuff all the time. I think I have I don't know, an average of 100 projects in motion at any given moment. And that just keeps my brain thinking and ideating. And the building part is turning ideas into action. And that is a huge philosophy of ours, is that you have to
Yeah.
go from enthusiasm to execution. The execution is where all the good stuff sits. And so you have to do that transition. And the last one is show, don't tell, right? That as a, and this has been true my entire career. One of the ways that I've moved from role to role to role is that whenever I saw a role I wanted or a opportunity I wanted to take advantage of, I didn't just go and apply blindly. I would go back and I would try to do that role ahead of time. So for example, Alexa, I got an interview at Alexa. I didn't know anything about natural language. So I went to GitHub and there was a project called Alexa Pi. I think it's still out. It might
Okay.
be archived, but you can still find it. And basically what it said is go buy a Raspberry Pi and you're going to configure the Raspberry Pi to be like an Alexa device. You're going to load up Alexa voice service and you're going to put in your headphones and you're going to use push to talk. And I built dozens of them. I then evolved them to building skills. And I started all of this before I even got the job. So when I'm in the role, like doing the interview, and they're like, well, what would you do here? I'd be like, well, I built this. And you can go to my GitHub and see I have 7 projects that do this and this. Like I spoke from experience. And so showing
Yeah.
versus telling is such a powerful position to put yourself in, right? Rather than just being like, I did this and I can tell you about it, being able to actually demonstrate, which everyone can do in the age of AI, build a visual prototype of the thing you're talking about. So there's always something to show. So those are like the things that have kind of crafted me into the person I am today, is not just being a doer instead of a talker, not just, learning by doing, but also this show versus, tell mentality. Like, don't
Yeah.
just be willing to throw up a PowerPoint, like have demos, be willing, I always I'd prefer whiteboarding over a PowerPoint any day.
Yeah.
Some companies are still old school and like PowerPoint. So I always have one, but like, if I could whiteboard what I've PowerPointed, like that's the game I like to play instead. It's much more interactive and it allows me to really understand my audience much better too.
Yeah. However, with PowerPoint, you can do some really cool stuff nowadays as well.
Yes, of course.
That can go creative too.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, okay. So you are a great trainer. That's what you're doing most of your time. And hence, you recently received the Trainer of the Year award. Congratulations again on that one.
Yay. Thank you so much. Yes, from Mind Valley. What a cool, it was an amazing surprise because I only taught 2 classes for Mind Valley last year. And so usually when people teach in these things, they teach a whole series and I taught 2 sessions, but in those 2 sessions, I got the highest rating of all speakers, over 350 people, taught classes last year. And so it was a very big surprise, but also a huge honor. I love being, seeing data that supports my commitment to helping people learn about this technology.
Yeah, so it's great. It's congratulations again. It is a big achievement for sure. You very well deserve that for that matter. Yeah. So I would like to talk a little bit of the techie stuff now.
Yes,
Are you
let's
ready?
Let's go.
So I am aware that you have built safe and responsible systems at multiple levels, like executive, senior leadership, architecture, hands-on, whatnot. And wanted to ask first, before we get in the deep, what does responsible AI mean to you in practice, like in your daily work?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, I think it's interesting. I used to, when I was learning about responsible AI, it was very much a pragmatic academic conversation, right? I would always ask that question, me now, like I'm a learning by doing, show versus tell. So I'm like, well, how does that show up in your application? And so I got very interested early on in the early days of Alexa in like, what does responsibility actually mean? And one of the things I learned, actually, her, Sarah Bird, right? She's head of product, responsible AI and product development at Microsoft. One of the things that she said years ago, before Copilot launched, was around this concept of building AI safety systems in every implementation. And what that meant was that when you build an AI project, I often call them like a baby tiger, right? When you build a little baby tiger AI, that baby tiger AI is, it's cute, it's cuddly, it does some cool stuff, but it's actually got within it the potential to do some really harmful things if you're not
Yeah.
careful. And so from the very beginning, and so I always encourage people when you're thinking about this AI safety system, that as soon as you adopt a baby tiger, as soon as you think you're going to build an AI system, that you start first with the human AI experience. Right. And so
Mhm.
responsible AI to me is defining the human AI experience. It's becoming a producer of the system prompt, not just prompting a model you didn't train on, hey, do this work for me, but actually choreographing an entire system for your use, right? And so being
Yeah.
much more intentional about your approach. And then ultimately, right, making sure that you've got systems in place. So responsible AI is an operational tactic. So you are familiar with this as well, but for those who aren't, one of my favorite features that launched earlier this year was the agents that Microsoft built in. If you go in and you're in Microsoft Foundry, right, and you build a new agent, you will see automatically at the bottom of the navigation, it'll say guardrails. And it has
Yes.
some default guardrails based on what Microsoft already knows about potential attacks, but you can build your own. These are personalized, organization driven constraints that you can add to any agent. As a matter of fact, I'm a believer that every agent should have these, right? Every agent should have an intentional set of constraints upon which it
Yes.
works. And so, and then of course,
True.
you build these guardrails, you build these constraints. Who's going to test them? I used to teach a class on AI red teaming. I still teach it. I think I'm teaching one in December. But and that's good. Humans should do some red teaming, but it also is really valuable if you have agents doing that red teaming, attacking benign attacks and adversarial attacks to just expose vulnerabilities long before you ever go to production. And so
Yeah.
that's another, really cool, having an AI red teaming agent that ships as part of your Microsoft Foundry experience. Like most people don't even know these boxes are in there. They don't even know they can check these services. And so, yeah, that's responsible AI to me is really this operational implementation of protection, of safety, of privacy and security. And that's why I'm obviously excited about Foundry, but also the ability for companies to implement those things on their own.
What does it do? What do you think it takes to create systems that are actually ethical and safe at scale? Would you just tell them to go to Foundry and implement some guardrails?
Yeah. Well, I find Foundry is actually for a specific type of audience, right? This is the builders typically, maybe senior technical leadership, but typically not for those who hold the purse strings for the like actual purchase, right? Who's going to provision Foundry? I just went into a company. I taught them how to build an enterprise COE, right? We have
Hmm.
a COE in a box. So we
Yeah.
go in and we help them build an enterprise community of excellence to ground all of their AI work in policy, in governance, right? Create an AI registry. These are the things that it takes. However, in order for that to even get built, you need leadership in the company to recognize that that's a worthwhile investment. And
Hmm.
that's why AI leadership, we focused 100% on executive and board education, because as much as an engineer wants to do safe, responsible AI, if they are not provisioned time and resources to do that, they're going to have to cut those corners, right? It's just like
Right.
documentation,
Right.
right? Like transparency, explainability, documentation, robust development, all these things that are built uh, only in the spirit of like building a responsible, safe solution. All of that stuff will get cut if a leader has not provisioned to the company that that's a priority
Hmm.
for the organization. So I think it's actually a leadership thing rather than an engineering thing. So I do encourage leaders to become uniquely aware of one, what AI gone wrong looks like, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? I always say that about a baby tiger. Like, what's the
Uh
worst
huh.
thing that could happen? Is it your customers, right? Is it your employees? Like, what could happen, and how would you mitigate that? So one of the other things that we do in our client sessions is we do AI incident response scenarios. So we'll go in and
Hmm.
we'll say, do you remember that article that came out, that story that came out where the CEO of a startup, their database got deleted out from under them by an agent?
Yeah, I
Even
think I've seen it.
yeah,
Is
even
that the recent one or it's been an old one?
no, it's like in the last few months. Very,
Oh,
very
then
recent.
yeah, probably
Yeah,
yes, I've
so it was
seen
like an
it.
agentic system. The CEO tried to get it to stop, like was like, please stop deleting the database. And it was like, ha ha ha, I will not. And it deleted it.
Yeah.
But the main challenge, of course, is not that the agent did its thing, right? It's when something like that happens, can you recover? Right? Can
Yes,
you
yes.
get that database rebuilt? How long does it take? Can you manage the impact to your customers and to your employees and to your vendors? Like, it's more about incident management in the future than it is about, aversion. Like, models are going to
Yeah.
fail. That is a known fact in machine learning. So what we need to do now is figure out how do we, prevent it from happening. But if it does happen, how do we mitigate the risks of a failure in real
Yeah.
time?
I think one big difficult in this to identify how could it fail. Like I have been working in the past couple of weeks, I think, on on identifying risk dimensions, areas, and the different tiers. Like where how severe is that failure, and then try to identify controls for each and every levels actually of the failure. And it is quite a framework now, making, I think it is up to 240 different elements to take care of in the end. So it's I think it's very difficult to even identify what might go wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It is. I mean, the only thing you can do is like try like what you're doing, right? Try to think through it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you start basically putting this AI into production. Those failures are going to happen. So now the success relies on how well you've created the process you're describing to
Yes.
manage those errors and go back and reinforce the model to not make those mistakes in the future. And I
Yeah.
think this is a little known fact, right? Like most organizations, they're in the hype cycle. They're like, this is amazing and I love it. And they don't realize like that it can fail them. And it's
Yeah.
okay that it fails them, just like cyber, just like any other AI system or any other technology. Like technology is not flawless. It's how we react to those flaws in real time that allow us to take advantage of all of the goodness too.
Yes, yes. And by the way, some very important parts of that framework that I've been working on is, and how can you enable some of the controls that are out there, is by bringing in agentic identity. And you've been
Yeah.
exploring this non-human or human identity, agentic identity. So could you please define these concepts for us to start with?
Oh, absolutely. So this is a new, relatively new topic in the last year, kind of like how agents in 2025 came fast, right? Like we started using it at the end of 24, and by the beginning of 2025, everybody's like agent this, agentic that. So similarly, identity has surfaced as a concern. And the main reason why is because the narrative in the industry has been like AI is your coworker, AI is your friend, AI is your colleague, AI is your teammate.
Yeah.
And really, it can't be, right? Like that is a huge vulnerability to an organization if a worker thinks that AI is friendly. What we want to do instead is shift away from that to creating a very specific identity for our AI system. So I always think about like Microsoft, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft has this term called a V dash, right? You probably have seen them, right? When vendors work for Microsoft, you get a special email. It's like V dash Microsoft.
Yes,
It's
yes, yes.
the same thing, right? And the reason we do that is because we want to know that they're aligned with Microsoft, but they're not employees of Microsoft, right? They are
Mm-hmm.
not Microsoft. They are vendors of Microsoft. So it creates an instant distinction. So imagine, you have AI systems in your Teams channel, emailing you every day, putting things on your calendar. You want to know whether or not that thing was an AI or a human. You want
Yeah.
instant detection, right? Because human, I might give it a little bit more leeway because they're an employee and they have more rights. AI should be treated like a zero trust contractor, right? You want to immediately lock down what it's capable of doing, right? And the best way to do that is to actually put it, which is where the word identity comes from. You're going to put all of those identities into a specific domain. And now you have the ability to implement things like least privilege, right? Which is a
Mm-hmm.
policy that says do not let your agent, your AI system, have any more data than is absolutely necessary to do its job, right? And right now, most AI systems are overprivileged. Most of them have data that they don't need. And what ends up happening is if that agent gets compromised, right, not only will the data the agent has access to get compromised, but
Yes.
anything that was accidentally made accessible to that agent also becomes compromised. So it's a huge vulnerability for organizations who do not choose to, one, inventory all their AI systems, and then create an identity to manage all those systems. And so in the industry, in the security industry, we call it a non-human identity. And that means you need to have a strategy for both. A human
Yeah.
identity strategy, continuous identity, and then you also need a non-human strategy, a zero trust contractor strategy for your AI systems.
Yes, yes. And if I know correctly, your second book is on the way. And
Absolutely.
I just wanted to ask, is it going to take this direction, like looking into agentic AI? Because your first book was about responsible AI as well. It was, what was the exact title of it? Please say it out loud for
Yeah, it
us.
was Scaling Responsible AI. And so it was all about, though, the time and place where we were LLM driven, right? So
Mm-hmm.
not agentic specifically, mostly LLM driven, and then also fine tuning of LLM. So, right. So
Yeah.
really more on the atomic unit. Like, I'm going to build a model. I need it to do one thing and do one thing really well. What we've evolved to now is now we have a bunch of these atomic models that do one thing really well. Now we're orchestrating them. And in that orchestration comes identity, comes
Mm-hmm.
process intelligence, right? Orchestration intelligence. And so graphs, right? Like this whole new world of how do we take these single units of work that are agents that check my email or monitor my calendar or manage my sales or communicate with my customers. How do I orchestrate them into a business process? And manage that process with integrity, having LLMs as judges and observers, doing
Mm-hmm.
model evaluations and using cognitive memory, right? It's just a whole new world. So yeah, my new book is actually called Scaling Agentic Systems. And so it's basically book 2, right? You have to know how to build the atomic model first, and then you need to scale to orchestrate those models together. And there's a totally different framework that's required when you start putting models back to back, connecting them. I personally, do you remember or have you worked with semantic kernel? Are you
Of
familiar with?
course, yes.
Yeah. So that was one of my first favorite orchestration layers that they had built. And it started the way all good things do, right? Like in a small little group, who published on GitHub, right?
Yeah.
That eventually got a CVP at Microsoft to adopt them. Like it was really, really organic the way it was created, because the number one problem they faced at the time was that a single atomic LLM with a small context window couldn't answer big questions, couldn't write a whole textbook. And so they built this framework that allowed you to build a bunch of little models and put them in a pool like Lego blocks, and
Mm-hmm.
then create planner skills that can grab each model statelessly, use them in the context of their work, and then drop them back into the pool. And I think, that again, that is the future. Like that is what agentic workflows look like in the future. But we're right now seeing this really strange friction with organizations trying to use agentic workflow in the same way they built LLMs, right?
Yeah.
Very singularly purposed, no orchestration. So we kind of have to go back to the days of like business process execution language and reteach companies what it takes to orchestrate business processes at scale. And that's really what the book focuses on.
And do you see it as a challenge when it comes for enterprises to implement identity for agents? Do you see challenges like the costs of doing this, or maybe the lack of knowledge or experience, or what are the main challenges that you see now?
Yeah, I think the number one challenge is just sheer adoption, right? Like getting everyone, I always say, going from the boardroom to the whiteboard to the keyboard, right? That's our philosophy at the AI
Yeah.
Leadership Institute and has been for a long time, that we first start with executive leadership has to be on board for what it takes to build safe, responsible AI at scale.
Yeah.
Then the senior leadership, or what I would call the architects, right? The people who are going to be designing and architecting these solutions, they also need to now know what it takes to do this work. And then the humans that are going to build it, right? The employees who are going to use it, they have to do it. Now, what I'm seeing now is that there's a lot of executive awareness, but there's not enough readiness being built into these companies. So I created a framework called ARC to kind of push organizations along. That the first step of ARC is awareness. Everyone in the company needs to know how does AI work for us? This is policy creation, governance, establishment, AI usage policy. Like, how does everyone know what their job is when it comes to AI? That's
Yeah.
awareness. But the second part is our readiness. Like, you have to put AI into your systems. You have to leverage the features that are given to you. Most companies don't. Like, they're using ChatGPT to ask random questions as opposed to integrating AI into the workflow itself. It takes a
Mhm.
little bit more time and effort. It definitely takes some insight as an organization as to what you truly want to accomplish, what KPIs you're trying to hit. But that work is so valuable because you get exponential growth on the back end. But the last one, C, competitive advantage, like it only comes when you've educated everyone in your company and you've built in these pockets of readiness where you're actually using AI to move the needle in parts of your business. Accounts payable, accounts receivable, right? Supply chain, purchasing, right? These are not traditional tech parts of the organization, but these are the ones who have the biggest opportunity when you actually turn AI and, in their direction and help them use it to alleviate some of their challenges. I mean, there are still people who like look at invoices with their eyes and like look for deadlines with their and type it into an Excel spreadsheet. Like, there are still people doing this. And I'm like, let's just help them, because there's so much higher value work they could be doing that they don't have time to do because they're doing this kind of monotonous computer driven work in these workflows.
Yeah. Okay, that's really insightful to talk about these things, especially nowadays, because it's going to be our future for all of us, I believe,
Yes,
to think these through and kind of try and build this into our everyday lives, especially in the, how should I say, in those places where we build with AI. So yeah,
absolutely.
I have one final question to you, the
Okay,
all-time
Leslie.
favorite. I would like to ask you, what is one story that no one knows about you, but you wish more people knew it?
Oh, this one's hard because I tell my stories all the time. But maybe a little known story that is interesting. So, and of course, this is, many of, those watching, this is, women in AI, learn from our experiences. So I think it would be valuable to kind of understand my journey. One of the choices I made as a professional is that I wanted to be an executive. So, 15 years ago, I was a director and I was like, okay, I want to go on a path to eventually become a CTO or a CIO or something
Mhm.
like that. There was no CAIO, right? There was no AI in organizations yet. I remember the first time I went to LinkedIn to try and put AI as a job
Yeah.
category, and it wasn't there for years. So I was like, I guess I'll just like tell them. I don't know. But one of the challenges that I ran into as I guess, divergent thinker, as someone who is very ambitious and wants to push the needle, right? Areas where I was very successful is where an organization would give me a goal and I would then go crush that goal. Right? That was and as long as the organization had a lot of clarity on what they wanted, I could go after it and just be like, I got this.
Yes.
Um, but when there was a lot of ambiguity, and let's face it, most organizations operate in massive ambiguity where they don't know what they want. They don't know how to measure what they want because they don't know what they want. In these environments, I then manufacture my own goals because I like to pick a number and go after it and then beat it, right? Like that's
Hmm.
the way I measure my own success.
Yeah.
And so I would do this consistently throughout my career. But one thing that happened, uh, an interesting story that happened, and I'll just tell you one, it's surrounded by other things.
Mm.
But I end up at Amazon. I'm a technical program manager. I love this job. It's basically the glue that holds everyone together, right? I understand engineering, I understand the business, and I drive us to an outcome of deploying software solutions.
Yeah.
But it was a natural language, it was Alexa. So we were deploying features on Alexa. And I was pregnant now with my fourth child, Jocelyn. And so I was pregnant with her. And oh my gosh, so many things happened. But so I'll give you two quick ones. One, that I'm pregnant. I'm like 8, 9 months pregnant, very, very pregnant. And I'm in Seattle. And the company is like, we need you to be a TPM, but the TPM role is in Boston.
Hmm.
Boston. Like the opposite of Seattle.
Yeah.
I'm like, no problem. I'm an East Coast girl, so it was fine. So we moved to Boston. However, in the process of moving to Boston, I am now deploying on Alexa, very exciting work. I am pregnant, 8 months pregnant. In the process of moving to Boston, our moving trailer catches on fire. Like
Oh.
all of our stuff, which we don't have, all of the baby stuff, everything, like everything.
Okay.
So are all of my belongings, and listen, imagine me, I'm at work in Boston on the phone in my little cubicle, open seating, and I get a call from the movers, and I'm thinking they're going to schedule the move, and they're like, well, I'm sorry to say this, but we've destroyed everything you own. I mean, just imagine, I have this is my fourth kid, so all of the baby pictures, all of the cute little things they made in
Oh my
preschool,
gosh.
like everything. And then they said, if you would like, you can come and see the pile of mush and like rummage through it to try. And I found things like I still have books on my bookshelf that have like cinder on it, like black dust, soot.
Oof.
It was such a disaster. And I'm at work, right? And I get this news and I'm pregnant.
Wow.
And anyway, so it was like extremely challenging moment where I was like, what am I going to do? So the end is good though. It's bad, then it gets good. So the last thing that happened was that the moving company that destroyed everything went out of business. So they did not pay us. Like, we got nothing. Like, we now have nothing and we have no money to rebuy anything. So I'm freaking out. The board member of the company that went out of business finds out that I'm freaking out, finds out that a mom working at Amazon. I send an email to Jeff Bezos and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Jeff Bezos never talks to me, but we get a check in the mail for $70,000. And in the note, it says goodwill. That's it. I never got a letter. I never got like, sorry, it was just a check in the mail. I get goosebumps right now because I don't know what I would have done, but it's just to show you, like, I don't know if a leader maybe would have had a conversation with me or given me a hug, but my gosh, did that check change my life?
Yes.
Like, we bought, we could buy beds. Like, we had nothing.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
So I just went.
I was in a totally new place, new apartment, everything.
Yes,
I can imagine.
Yes. And in a new job anyway. So yeah, that's a very little known story. But really cool. Like, just people are good people. Like, you never would know or guess, but I like to let you know there's hope in humanity.
That's nice. That's good to know, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it was a terrible situation, but it ended up okay. And I did buy a beautiful new crib for my brand new baby.
Oh, that's sweet, actually, in the end.
Yeah.
All right, Noelle, what a conversation. You brought a really nice talk today, like a lot of honesty, the technical depth as well. And I can see how important is the AI-related questions to you.
Absolutely. You tell I'm like all excited. I'm like,
yes, you're all around that. So thank you, Noelle, again. And just for the audience, I would like you to reach out to Noelle, and you can do that through LinkedIn. Please ask her questions about responsible AI, identity, security, and all kind of cool questions about just herself.
Yes.
Well.
And don't be worried. If you go to LinkedIn, I hit my LinkedIn connection limit of 30,000 people, but I can still take messages. So you can just message me. And once I message you back, we have an open communication. So don't worry. And you, of course, can always just go to my first name.ai, noelle.ai, and that has all of my channels. So you can hit me up anywhere. But yeah, absolutely would love to share my journey, give you any advice from my experience. But yes, thank you very much for having me. It's such a fun conversation to talk about where I came from and where I'm going.
Thank you so much, Noelle. By the way, I didn't know there was a limit on connections.
I know, 30,000.
There's a limit on skills, but I didn't know there was a limit also on the connections.
Yes, so it's very sad. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I keep telling me, I'm like, be friends anyway. But yeah,
we want to be friends.
Sad.
We want to be network with friends.
That's right.
All right, thank you, Noelle, again for joining us today. I hope you had fun as well.
I did. Thank you so much.
See you soon. And I would like to share with you that our next Women in AI session will be on the 9th of September, and I'll be welcoming Louis, who is a Microsoft M365 and Business Applications MVP and an AI advisor. We will talk about adoption, security, and some of the related hardcore stuff. So stay tuned. You can hear more on, oops, that's not the screen. This is the screen. You can hear more if you follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. And you can also check the recordings later on YouTube and Spotify. You can also check out the previous conversations with the awesome women in AI. So I hope you had fun. See you soon again. Bye.